Today we're going to be covering the rules for all operations when working with integers, so positive and negative numbers. And we're going to start off with multiplication and division. I feel like those rules are a lot more straightforward, so let's get started with some examples. Over here on the side, I do have just some little notes here. If we have opposite signs, our answer is going to be negative. If we have the same signs, then our answer is going to be positive. And then we just multiply the numbers like normal. So let's start off with 3 times 2. These are both positive integers, so nothing really new here. So 3 times 2 gives us a positive 6, right? Now we have a negative 3 times a negative 2. So one of the mnemonics that I like to teach my students is something called sleeping baby. We call it sleeping baby just to help us remember that it has 2 sleeping eyes. So those are going to be our negative signs, and then a pacifier in its mouth. And so that's going to be our positive sign. So it's just a way to remember how to set up this drawing. It's really easy just to kind of put this in the corner of your paper as you're working through these problems. And this strategy only works for multiplication and division problems. We'll get into some rules with addition and subtraction later, but this will only work with multiplication and division. So let's see how it works. We've got a negative 3 times a negative 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover the 2 negative signs. So the negative for the 3 and the negative for the 2. Whatever sign is left over is going to be the sign of our answer. So since 3 times 2 is 6, and we have this positive left over, then our answer is going to be positive 6. Okay, let's see how it works on this problem. We have a positive 3 times a negative 2. So I'm going to cover up the positive and the negative. So that leaves us with a negative sign. So then that means that our answer is going to be negative. And then the 3 times 2, that part doesn't change. It's still 6. So we wind up with negative 6. Okay, and then we have a negative 3 times positive 2. It doesn't matter which negative you cover up. So we're going to cover up the negative for the 3, the positive for the 2. We're left with a negative. So then that means, again, our answer is negative 6. Okay, so you can see that it's 6 in all of these answers. The only thing that's going to change when you're multiplying positive and negative numbers is just the sign. The 3 times 2, that part is always going to be the same, or whatever numbers you're multiplying or dividing. Let's get into some division problems. All right, so here we have positive 20 divided by positive 4. So 20 divided by 4, that gives us 5. They're both positive. Our answer is going to be a positive 5. So again, nothing really new with that first problem. Now let's take a look at what happens when both of the numbers are negative. So negative 20 divided by negative 4. So we can go ahead and do the number part first and then worry about the sign later. So 20 divided by 4 is still 5, but then let's use our sleeping baby. The 20 is negative, the 4 is negative, so what's left over? The positive sign. So then that means a positive 5. We can put the positive there, the plus sign there, or just leave it off. They're both the same. All right, now we've got a negative 20 divided by positive 4. So we're going to cover up one of the negatives for the 20 and the positive for the 4. We're left with a negative sign. So that means that we are going to get negative 5 for our answer. All right, and then we have positive 20 divided by negative 4. If you want to do the sign first and then do the division, that's fine too. So 20 is positive, 4 is negative. We're left with a negative, so we know that our answer is going to be negative. And then 20 divided by 4 is 5. All right, let's see what kind of similarities we can see here. In all 4 of these problems, our signs are the same. So here, both signs are positive, both signs are positive. In these two, both signs are negative and negative. So when our signs are the same, that's going to result in a positive answer. We can see that all of our answers here are positive. Let's see what happens in these 4 problems. In each of these, our signs are opposite. We have a positive and a negative, negative and a positive, negative and a positive, positive and a negative, right? So when we have opposite signs, then our answer is going to result in a negative. All right, so you can see that all of these wound up with a negative answer. So that is what this little note over here means. Our multiplication and division, like the actual numbers part, that part didn't change. The only thing that we had to kind of decide on were the signs. All right, let's quickly go through some of these problems down here. I encourage you to pause the video, try them out on your own, and then resume and see if you got them right. All right, so hopefully you did that. Let's go ahead and do 6 times negative 8. They're opposite signs, so I know my answer is going to be negative. And then 6 times 8 is 48. Here we have the same signs, so I know my answer is going to be positive, and then 4 times 9 is 36. All right, here we have opposite signs, so I know my answer is going to be negative, and then 15 divided by 3 gives me 5. Here my signs are the same, so I know my answer is going to be positive, and then 10 divided by 2 gives me 5, so we wind up with positive 5. 7 times 5 is 35, and then I can see that only one of my signs is negative, so I know that's going to be a negative answer. And then 30 divided by 3 is 10. And then both of my signs are negative, so I know that's going to give me a positive answer. Here we're going to talk about adding and subtracting positive and negative integers. So the rules are a little bit different here. I do have some notes over here. There are a lot of different strategies. We're going to use one specific strategy where we're going to set up columns, but I do have several other videos I will link in the description for you if you want other strategies other than the one that we're going to cover in this video. So what I'd like to do, this is my favorite strategy. It's pretty simple to just set this up on your paper over on the corner or on the side somewhere. Set up 2 columns, one positive column and one negative column. Now, we're going to place those numbers in each of those columns based on their signs. So, since the 3 is positive, I'm going to put the 3 in the positive column. And since the 2 has the plus sign in front of it, I'm going to also place that 2 in the positive column. So we're going to start thinking about the positives and negatives as very similar or the same as that plus and minus sign that we see in between. So whatever sign is in front of each number, that's the sign that goes with that number. So since we don't have any sign in front of the 3, that's an assumed positive. And then since we have the plus sign in front of the 2, that 2 is going to be positive for the purposes of using these columns. Okay, now since both my 3 and 2 are in the same column, so same signs, we're going to add them together. So 3 plus 2 is 5. And that's not surprising to us because this is just a normal addition problem that we've seen a lot of when we're adding 2 positive numbers. Since both of these numbers are in that positive column, our answer is positive. Rather than redrawing this out so that I can use it for the next problem, what I'm going to do is just cross out the numbers that I've already used and just reuse the same thing for the next problem so I don't have to keep writing it over and over again. And you can do the same thing on your paper as well. Let's take a look at this one. We have 3 plus negative 2. Sometimes you'll see these parentheses around negative numbers. That is just to separate this negative sign from the plus sign. But here's what I want you to do when you have 2 signs in the middle here. When we have 2 signs in the middle, think back to our multiplication and division section. When we have opposite signs, then that gives us a negative, right? So a plus and a minus put together is really the same as subtracting 3 minus 2. Okay, so that's one way that you can think about it. Now we're going to use our columns. The 3 is positive, so I'm going to put that in the positive column. The 2 has the subtraction sign in front of it, so that is going to be a negative number, or in the negative column. And since we have these numbers in opposite columns, we're going to go ahead and subtract them. So we're always going to take the largest number minus the smallest number, so 3 minus 2 gives us 1. And then whatever column the larger number is in will be the sign of our answer. So since the 3 is in the positive column, our 1 is positive. Let's try another one. Here we have negative 3 plus 2. So the 3 has a negative sign in front of it. That's going to go in the negative column. The 2 has the plus sign in front of it, so that's going to go in the positive column. Again, we have our numbers in opposite columns, so we're going to subtract them, starting with the highest number, 3 minus 2, gives us 1. And this time, since the 3 is the higher number, that's going to be in the negative column, then our answer is going to be negative. Here we have a negative 3 plus a negative 2. Again, whenever I see 2 signs in the middle like that together, I'm going to combine them and figure out what sign, just one single sign, represents the 2 of those together. So negative 3 minus 2, right? Opposite signs give us a minus sign. Now, these 2 together doesn't affect the negative in front of the 3. I'm just bringing down the negative that's already in front of the 3. Because remember, it's whatever sign is in front of each number. So since this plus and minus were both in front of the 2, then that only affects the 2. All right, Let me cross these out from my last problem. So -3, that's going to go in the negative column. -2 or -2 is going to go in the negative column. They're both in the same column, so we're going to add them together. So that's 5. And then, because they're both in the negative column, it is going to be a negative answer. So we get -5. Okay, all of those were addition problems. Now let's go down here where we have some subtraction problems. And I set up a new diagram over here just so I have a clean space to put all of these in. So let's take a look at 8 minus 5. Now, this is just a typical subtraction problem, but we're going to still use our columns just to see how this process works. So our 8 doesn't have anything in front of it, so that means it is a positive. Our 5 has the subtraction sign in front of it, so we're going to put that in the negative column. They're in opposite columns, so we're going to go ahead and subtract 8 minus 5. Gives us 3. And since the 8 is in the positive column, our answer is positive. Let's try this one. So here we have a minus a negative. So again, I'm just going to combine those. So whenever we have two negatives, think back to our multiplication and division section. When we have two negatives, they cancel each other out and it really makes a positive. So this is really 8 plus 5. Another way that you can think about this, the subtraction sign tells us to take away, right? But then the negative sign tells us to do the opposite of that. So if we're doing the opposite of taking away, we're really adding to. So that's another way that you might think about it. Let's use our columns. The 8 doesn't have anything in front of it, so it's positive. The 5 has the plus in front of it, so it's positive. They're in the same column, so we're going to add. So 8 plus 5 is 13. And since they're both in the positive column, our answer is positive. Here we have a negative in front of the 8. Oops, let me cross these out, sorry. We have a negative in front of the 8, so that goes in the negative column. We have the negative in front of the 5, so that goes in the negative column. They are both in the same column, so we're going to add them together. That's 13. And then since they are both in the negative column, then our answer is negative. All right, here we have again two signs here in the middle, so I'm just going to rewrite this as plus 5. So again, those two negatives don't affect my 8 at all. That sign stays as it is, so it stays negative. Because both of these signs are in front of the 5, that's the only one that it affects. So our 8 is negative, so that's going to go in the negative column. Our 5 is positive, that's going to go in the positive column. Then they are opposite of each other, so we're going to subtract 8 minus 5, we're always subtracting biggest minus smallest. So 8 minus 5 is 3. And then since that 8 is the bigger number and it is in the negative column, our answer is -3. All right, we started off with just some single digit addition and subtraction just to give you a feel for how this strategy works. So now let's use it with some two-digit numbers. All right, so we've got a -47 plus 36. The 47 has a negative in front of it. That goes in the negative column. The 36 has the plus in front of it. That goes in the positive column. They're in opposite columns, so we're going to subtract. So we're always going to do the larger minus the smaller. And I'm just going to set this up right here, right next to my problem, and go ahead and subtract. So 7 minus 6 is 1, 4 minus 3 is 1. So I'm going to go ahead and write down the 11. And now I'm going to go back to my two columns here to see what the sign should be. 47 is the larger of these two numbers. It is in the negative column, so our answer is -11. -25 minus 19, so those are both going to go in the negative column. So 25 and 19 are both in the same column. That means we're going to add them together. So let's do 25 plus 19, and again, I'm just kind of doing this off to the side. So that gives us 14 and then 4. So our answer is 44. Now let's go back here and take a look at what our sign is. They're both in the negative, so our answer is -44. Let's go on to this problem, 23 minus 70. The 23 doesn't have anything in front of it, so that's going to go in the positive column. The 70 has the minus sign. That's going to go in the negative column. We're going to subtract those since they're on opposite sides. So let's do some regrouping here. 10 minus 3 is 7, 6 minus 2 is 4, so we get a 47. And then of the two numbers, 70 is our larger number, it's negative, so our answer is negative. Last one, 42 plus -16. Again, we can rewrite this to 42 minus 16. All right, so our 42 is positive, that's going to go here. Our 16 is negative, so that's going to go here. Opposite sign, subtract. 42 minus 16. Let's do some regrouping. 12 minus 6 is 6, 3 minus 1 is 2. So we get 26, and then the 42 is the larger of the two, and that's positive. So we get a positive 26. Like I said, I do have a lot of other strategies that I go over in different videos, and those are linked in the description. So please check those out. If you liked this video, I would really appreciate a like and a subscribe. That really does help me to continue making these math videos for you. And please let me know in the comments if there are other skills or things that you would like to see. Thanks so much. See you next time.